Okay, hello everybody. Are you ready for round 6 of the Open Gentry? The Gentry Open Gentry. Can't even talk anymore. All this excitement is getting too much for me. We are featuring table 5, which has so the top 3 tables are people that most likely have a draw and in, so they're unlikely to play. And then on table 4 and table 5 we have the heartbreakers, the win and ins. So we have the win and ins. That's Chovan, Jaroslav, Mortier Frederik, Pepijn de Grijze, and I think Alan Schuur. They are going to be the people that are battling for the remaining 2 slots. I still need to go get their deck list, so I'll be back in a minute or so. Ja, haakje. Dank u wel. Kom jij morgen dan? Eens kijken.
Waar is dat?
In de Blaarmeersen.
Kan je met de auto naartoe?
Ja, er is zelfs parking beschikbaar binnen.
Ja, ga langs.
Je moet niet, hè, als je zin hebt. Ik ga er ook maar laat zijn, dus. Ik ga er ook maar laat zijn. Wacht zo. Frederik, kun jij een keer je hand uitsteken? Ja, perfect. Gewoon om te weten dat het juist is. Oké, doei. Het is beter kleurcontrast, ja. Okay, so we are ready to go. We have Jaroslav, Chovan and Mortier Frederik in round 6, the last round of the Gentry Open. They are one of 2 matches that are still in contention for the most coveted slots of slots. A top 8 slot. 6 players, I think, can draw in. Some of them might play because they want to get a higher seed, but let's assume they all draw in. We've seen Jaroslav Chovan already in the feature match. He's playing a really interesting Grixis non-improvise control deck. Frederik, in the meantime, is playing red-green energy aggro, a deck that has done surprisingly well at this event. A lot of people seem to think that this was the deck that was dethroned by black-green counters, which we barely saw any of black-green counters, so very interesting to see the shift in the meta game here. I already see some interesting additions to Frederik's deck. Rush of Adrenaline, only playing 2 Uncaged Fury. It's the card you're looking for that crazy late game 1-2 punch. So let's see how this matchup will develop. 27 viewers, awesome, welcome everybody. Again, if you're not part of the local community, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know where you're watching from and what you think about our awesome format. Okay, our players are about ready to go, and so am I. I hope you're ready too, dear viewer. It's been a crazy day. I had a lot of fun already. I say it's been a crazy day. We still have a top 8 after this, with all sorts of amazing matches cooked up and ready to go just for you. Okay, let's see if our players like their opening 7s. And let's get rid of this cloud blazer and put something there that is more likely to show up. Okay, dual lands on the table. So for the people that are just tuning in and have no idea what decks we are watching here, this is Red Green Energy, the premier aggro deck of our format, facing off against an personal build of Yaroslav, a very classic looking Grixis control deck. Why do I say classic? Well, that's because Grixis in our format is usually marked by a lot of improvised cards and even Tezzeret's Touch to be able to put a lot of pressure on your opponent very, very early on, where this deck is classic removal, card draw, finishers. Friedrich probably getting a chance to get in with some damage here. He has the blossoming defenses for the shock that might be coming out of Yaroslav's deck. It's a fatal push, and we have a blossoming defenses. So comes in for 6 and gets to kick a removal spell out of Yaroslav's hand, and there we have the attune, making sure the energy reserve stays full and that his land drops are being made. I'm actually a bit surprised to see Friedrich on this deck. I generally associate him with slightly more synergistic and challenging decks to play. So him choosing this deck is a statement about how solid this choice still is. So we have apparently at least one American viewer, North Manchester, Indiana. Welcome. Get your friends along and make this a viewing party, I would say. Because this is far from over and we have some awesome magic queued up for you. Okay, we have a renegade map for Yaroslav. I think Alan Schuur in the meantime has gotten a concession from his opponent, scooping him into probably the top 8. So we have at least one player of the league of new and beginning Magic players in the top 8, and if Friedrich wins here, he has a chance of taking a slot there as well, even if it is a rather slim chance. He's currently on 9 points, where Yaroslav is on 10. So again, Yaroslav is guaranteed a slot with his win. If Friedrich wins, he has to play the tiebreaker roulette to see if he deserves a slot. In the meantime, we have an incendiary sabotage, nullifying his board. And a Renegade Freighter. Which is... he's playing a Renegade Freighter and Ether Sphere Harvester. An addition that a lot of players forgo. So... Ow. But Yaroslav has his trait, Kalitas. That's the other one. Well, Friedrich has... What's that guy's name? Molfist. A revolutionary. An interesting addition that we usually see in black-green counters rather than red-green energy. So what kind of cards does he have that have counters? He can of course always give himself a bit of energy. He has Longtusk Cups. Further is Gear Hulk. And it has a Planeswalker of his own. So those are the few cards that have good synergy with the Molfist. So an interesting addition here. In the meantime, Yaroslav is at 5 life, but has an unlicensed disintegration, which doesn't do damage, but does give Yaroslav a zombie of the Kalitas. And grows the Kalitas so it can block and survive. An attack from the freighter, so that's a 5/6. Oh, but he attacked with it, so using it for the lifelink. He's tapped out, so he's opening himself up to any and every pump spell that Friedrich has here. So I see one rush of adrenaline already. Oh, but no creature to crew it. He is playing more creatures than most players with this deck are playing already. That's a bit unfortunate on his end, and Yaroslav is starting to run away with the game here. P-Foul. It's a hilarious card name if you ask me. Yeah, in standard, red-green energy also is pretty impressive. Craziest thing is you get to play 4 pummelers and play around that card, where here it's usually played as a little extra finishing power. So yeah, especially if you look at deck lists that are 4 to 5 months old, you'll see a lot of decent red-green energy. In the meantime, Friedrich did not find an answer to the Kalitas, did not find a way to attack back, and has forced to concede the game to Yaroslav. Let's jump into the sideboards and see what these players are bringing to the table. For Friedrich, there's an extra Renegade Freighter, 1 extra Uncaged Fury to complement the 2 he has in his main deck, 1 Destructive Tempering, 4 times Shock, 1 Ether Chaser, 1 Pima Outrider, 2 Views of the Recluse. That's the +1/+2 pump spell. What is it? It's something Vines of the Recluse. Yes, there we go. 1 Sure Strike and 3 Natural States. Now again, he hasn't seen much from Yaroslav's deck, but I don't think you want the Freighter. The Shock would be good as some reach and control against Planeswalkers. And I kind of like the Pima Outrider as a slightly beefier option to put in his deck. Yaroslav, in the meantime, has 4 succumb to temptation, 2 for fortuitous finds, 2 fen haulers, haulers, 2 fen haulers, 3 negates, 1 planes, and 3 fragmentize. So I would like to see Frederick sideboarding out his vehicles and if he's lucky, catching Yaroslav off guard, so he does not have anything to fragmentize, which he brought in. I think that's what Frederick needs to actually make something out of this game. But that's, of course, it's still red-green energy, and it can still just curve out and get crazy amount of pressure on his opponent. So anything can happen, really. Okay, so players are shuffling up for game 2. And let's see which decisions they took with their sideboards here. I think I see a hand with just 1 mana producing land for Friedrich. Not sure though. Yaro does not allow a little peek into his hand. Yeah, and Friedrich is mulliganing. I think Yaroslav already chose to keep his hand. So chat, somebody comments that they're not a big vehicles fan. Well, they have their good and their bad sides. It's a bit of an all-in strategy. So Friedrich decided to keep, has a energy efficient hand, let's call it, with a bunch of attunes. And Yaroslav has a renegade map to make sure his mana is smooth as well. Bit of a quiet start though.
How do you know?
Because the screen is on. Okay, so Friedrich has access to all the lands and energy he needs. It's time to get on the board with some pressure. He has a voltaic brawler, and because of, or since his mana was a bit awkward, he will be able to protect it with that blossoming defenses. Yaroslav gets the prophetic prism to smooth out his mana and draw a card, and Friedrich choosing to go with the renegade freighter instead. That's interesting. It does dodge all sorcery speed removal.
Doesn't seem to be. Oh, it's weird.
Okay, so we have one person rooting for Frederick already. Anyone want to see Yaroslav and his Grixis deck win? Just put it in the chat. So another renegade map for Yaroslav. And we have the Voltaic Brawler. It does start off with an extra toughness, so maybe that's the reason that Frederick went this route. There's other advantages as well, of course. This way he could tap out on turn 3. We have the shock on Voltaic Brawler, which Frederick decides to counter with his blossoming defenses. Yaroslav was thinking about casting something. He could have had a fatal push in his hand to get to the desired results. That Voltaic Brawler. And now Yaroslav gets to add something to the board. Consulate Skygate. Since he doesn't have access to fortified rampants, which the white decks generally play as their defensive option of choice, he is reduced, let's say, to playing the Skygate. Okay, it has reach, but there's a very big difference between 4 toughness and having 6 toughness. Okay, so we have a fan for Yaro as well. Right now it's a 1-1 in fandom score. That's a tie. We need tiebreakers, guys. Okay. So Yaro is taking quite a pounding here. Don't really understand why Frederick chose to attack with the freighter instead of the Voltaic Brawler. Both have trample. Still a lot of... There's still anyone's game at this point, even though that Yaroslav is at a significantly lower life total. His is the deck that will try to grind out the game and get to a point where he can start leveraging his more late game oriented cards. He has a bunch of planeswalkers that are quite capable in taking over a game. There might be an Obnixilis coming in to prove my point. Would be great here. Obnixilis destroying the Brawler. He does lose it to any creature of the top, or loses the Skygate. We'll have to see what his plan was here. He chose not to go fetch the island, which is interesting. So he's anticipating needing heavy mana. I think he has a fatal push still somewhere in his hand, because he was doubting for a while earlier when we had the interaction with the blossoming defenses. And there we have that fatal push, which also leaves behind a zombie token for Yaroslav. So in the old decks where we saw the Kalitas, the traitor, it was the ability to exile creatures that was most relevant to a lot of people, and the zombie a side effect. But in this version, in a deck chock full of removal, it actually becomes your pocket army, as I refer to the Rise from the Tides already. So we have a Harnessed Lightning attempting to take out the Kalitas, which is not sure if Frederick had mana available, but maybe he could have prevented the zombie entering play. And we have a self-assembler. So usually Yaroslav's tool against control decks, a 4-4 is nothing to scoff at, and a 4-4 that is essentially card advantage is enough to break through the removal wall that some of these decks bring to the table. not so much that function in this matchup here. And Yaroslav getting a bit more animated, getting a bit more expressive with how he's handling his cards. I think he can see how this game will end up. And it looks like this might be our first 2-0 feature match here. And we have the hand on the table. Frederik, incapable of getting back into this game, loses 2-0 to Yaroslav, who has assured his spot in the top 8. Thank you very much for being with us, everybody. It will be around half an hour until we get to the top 8, as this was one of our fastest matches today. So I'll give you some older footage while you wait. Thank you very much, and see you later.